Hey, hello, I'm Kråkan, also known as Corvus Cornix, and welcome to Closet Movie Rambles, where I talk about old movies that I found in my closet while cleaning. This week's movie is UFO Sweden, and it's about 1 hour and 50 minutes long, and it starts in 1988 with a father and a daughter sitting in a car waiting for a scientist called Leonard. And then cutting to 1996, where Denise, the daughter, has grown up to a teenager, and she's doing some vandalism with a group of youngsters, and she gets picked up by a cop. And meanwhile, this is happening. There are strange electronic malfunctions throughout the town. And then in a barn, there is like a farmer doing his thing, stacking hay, and all of a sudden a car flies right in through the barn and crash lands. And it turns out that that car belongs to Uno, Denise's father, and he's obviously been abducted by aliens. And nobody believes her, of course, so she goes to a former group that her father associated with called, of course, UFO Sweden. And they're not very helpful at first because they want to have hard-earned fact that it's actually Uno's car and whatnot, so they go investigate it. Or rather, she goes to investigate it, and things doesn't go that well. So what happens is she gets the attention of the group, and they go out to investigate the phenomenon, all the electronics lights and whatnot. So it's somehow related to the Swedish association would actually do with weather and stuff, SMHI. There's like this weird conspiracy theory that they're actually spying on aliens, which I thought was kind of funny because why not? So they go to this weather measuring station, which aren't on any map, and Denise gets her hands on some, I think it's like server data, and she tries to crack it, and there's some commotion happening, and she managed to crack it somewhat. They escaped from the police because obviously the police got involved in it, and they also follow a UFO. So there's this strange sort of northern light happening with the electronics and stuff, like this red kind of hue thing. So they managed to follow it to a place, and then it crashes into a lake, but they can't investigate it because the police are nearby. So one of the things I should have talked about was the scientist that gave the secret papers at the start of the movie is called Leonard, and he also works for this group called UFO Sweden, and he's one of the more helpful characters. So the whole team goes down to the lake and try to fish this UFO out of the water with a magnetic crane from a junkyard, if I remember correctly. But they abandon it mid-flight, and the police arrives. But Denise managed to pull it out, and she realizes that it's a plane, and then she gets picked up by the cops. And when they're driving on the way back, she's supposed to go to this place for bad kids, I guess. She sees the towing truck that is having the plane on the back, and she noticed the registration plate on it, and she realized that that's the same plane that disappeared in 1970 or something like that. It's a Danish plane, if I remember correctly. So another thing I forgot to talk about, she is apparently a hacker, so I don't know how they hacked things back in the day, but she short circuits a part of the cop car, and that triggers the airbag in the driver's seat and knocks the driver unconscious, and then the car kind of flips and she gets out of there, and she tries to reconnect with the UFO group, the UF group of Sweden, or whatever they're called, UFO Sweden group, and they're not very helpful. But Leonard says like, hey, I'm going to help you. So they go to try to get some help from a friend of his, and then the cops arrive because there's this other guy in the group that is not very helpful. Is this old guy that he doesn't really like Denise at all, and he is the guy that calls the cops on her constantly. So yeah. So then what happens is that the other parts of UFO Sweden group, they have a change of heart and they go try to help Leonard and Denise to escape from the cops, and so they create a diversion, and the whole thing leads to Leonard and Denise sitting in her old dad's car, and they're at the top of this parking lot roof. And since there is some time shenanigans with the car as well, I didn't quite understand it, but it can't be destroyed, so it's like it's part of the whole plot. So they decide to drive off the roof, and that's the solution to the problem. You just drive off the roof and then vanish into someplace else in time and space. So they end up in a very cold place, and Leonard gets injured, and Denise actually managed to see her father, and he's walking into this light. I guess that's where the aliens are at, and he's calling to her, and she says, no, I'm not alone anymore, I have actual friends. And then she ends up back in the year 1998, and they get reunited with the UFO Sweden group, and they're having a coffee break, and that's more or less how the movie ends. So what do I think about this movie? It was okay. It was better than I expected, I should say. So I don't know. There was something about it. They kind of captured the whole time bubble thing, where if it's supposed to be 1988, the aesthetics of the cars, the clothes, and the people, and the way they talk and move, it actually matches that kind of aesthetic, which I thought was kind of interesting. There are other things in the movie that I don't like, and that's the acting. And this is one thing that Swedish. That's why I try to avoid Swedish movies as much as possible. It's the acting. It's not at all even close to the acting that Hollywood has. It's kind of cringy in my opinion. So that's why I try to avoid it. But this movie was actually good, and I enjoyed it for what it was. And yeah, I don't think I can recommend it, but it was a surprise for me as well, I guess. So anyway, thanks for listening and or watching, and take care.